Hi folks, Andrew Noble, founder of LodgeiT, and for all of you who came along to our year-end webinar, I'm very sorry. Didn't pan out as expected. We had a lot of technical gremlins creep into the works. So, what I've done is I've gone away and I've recorded the session again for an on-demand, which is what I'm giving to you now. What I'm going to do is show you all the new features that we've put into LodgeiT since probably 3 to 4 months ago. Some really cool features in there which I think you're going to get a lot of value out of. Going forward, we're going to have attachments for tax forms in LodgeiT. We're going to do postbacks. We're going to do document storage, so you can select your own document storage solution. We're going to do automated tax liability messaging. So currently you'll see in the example that we're giving you today, or the presentation today, the ability to import integrated account and tax account transactions from the ATO. You can use those for analytics, and you can also use them for your work papers and filling things like your franking account. We're going to use that information to be able to generate automated emails to your clients when they have debts that go over a certain amount after the debts have been outstanding for a certain amount of time. So that can save a lot of time with having to remind clients to pay their tax debts. We're also going to put in attachments to forms for sending, for signing, so your own custom documents that you might want to attach to whatever you're sending out from LodgeiT. And separate to this video that you're watching now, we should have a link with the email that's coming out to you showing you our new Axiom platform. So Axiom is a client engagement platform that solves for three things: client proposals all the way through to collecting your money through Stripe and all the transactions going into QuickBooks. So that's your client engagement letters, and it's really flexible, easy tool to use. Also in that same tool, we've got the ability to do client onboarding, so you can get your clients to supply tax file numbers, directors' IDs, related client information and that sort of thing. And then also the ability to create, we call them briefings, which are essentially customizable forms that you can get your clients to fill in information and pass to you. We're going to do a lot of work on that in the coming, 6 months. We'll make it possible for you to select out components that will represent parts of the tax form. So things like rental property, work-related expenses. But it's there now, you're welcome to try it. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to leave Axiom free to use. So jump in, have a play with it. There is some pricing on the website at the moment. We're doing it on a token basis, but we certainly don't see ourselves switching on the pricing for quite some time. We're really putting the system out there, getting more feedback and refining it. But I can say that it's pretty much ready for use. So most of the issues have been cleaned out of it, and you certainly should get a reasonable user experience if you're jumping in early at this stage to test what's there. So stay with me and I'll show you what we've got. Thanks, folks. Here is my absolute favorite new feature. So if we head along to ATO accounts, income tax account validator, import your transactions, what we now have is the activity still, in this case the income tax account transactions coming straight in from the ATO for 3 years. And we can do the same if we import from the integrated account. So again, import your transactions. No need to export and then import the CSV file anymore. So you've got direct access to both these important transaction sets. And moreover, if you didn't know, this feature's been here for a while, but if you want to import those transactions into the franking account, import from the validators. We'll first import for the 2025 financial year. We'll bring in from the income tax account. And you can see here if there's tax paid, so we'll select that as tax paid, and we'll then have that as as a payment of tax, and you can do the same by importing from the integrated account. So same timeline. Okay, what have we got? We need to select the integrated account there, and any of the installments. So that would be the first installment that would come in, payment of tax, and obviously it's up to you whether you want to take the installment value or the actual payments. I guess technically you take the actual payments, but in this case I know the payments have been made against the installment, and it's just easier to represent the installment. So payment of tax, payment of tax, payment of tax, and import those. So now you've got all your tax installments imported. So now what you'll find is when you're sending any document for signing, you've got three settings here. So you've got the options, the recipients, and the message. And this gives you the flexibility to, in this case, you'll see I'm going to change the authentication for the client to none. And I'm going to use the primary contact, which is the primary contact under the settings, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the other email address. So you can have multiple email addresses, or you might choose to send to someone else and you can manually do an override. So in this case I'll send to the primary contact but to this email address with no verification. Of course here you can change the message, and we'll send that for signing. Here I'm working with a super fund, and on the balance sheet you'll notice that in the equity section I've got the line items for the members. You can see clearly that each line item is notated with both the type of line item that it is as well as the name of the given member. So when it comes time to mapping, we'll have a look in here. Note that we're using the equity members equity mapping, so this is relevant to the super funds, so all the way through, noting that we have an opening balance. When you use this method you have an opening balance, but you don't need a closing balance because the closing balance is a derived value. So as long as you've got the mappings right here, you can go over to the form. We'll start with just creating this form, and as I said, we're only working with the equity section here. So we've got the members notated through the relationships module, and what we're going to be doing here is so we'll do Anna first, and it's really simple. So we're just simply going to tick everything that is Anna, and then we'll do the same for John. So just the import and John. You should still double check that the balances are correct, because it's possible that you could double map something. So we've got 694,597. 694,597. So we can see that we've mapped all the equity components. And to generate the financial statements, the non-trading entity, there's no revenue or cost of goods. Of course, you can change the name of that. And let's have a look and see if the members section has been mapped appropriately. So again, 347, 694,597. So you can see that the new way that we're presenting it is like this, which is more in line with what you'd expect for a members distribution section. So this is what it looks like in the final output. Again, that's a derived value based on summing these other line item values. So as with the super fund, where you can now map members' account line items, here we're going to do the same with a trust and rental properties. This will work perfectly well with partnership and also an individual. So essentially these line items are rental property based, and we want them to show up in the rental property schedules. So let's just see how we will manage the mapping. So rent mapped to rental income, and the expenses mapped to rental property costs. So this one's wrong. So now you can see we've got two options. Of course, we'll select that one. And then we can go to the form and add in, so this is trust tax return for 2024. And we want to activate rentals. So what we will do now is go to the rental and create a worksheet. So the first worksheet will relate to Edward Street. And again, just like with the super fund, you're just simply selecting Edward Street all the way through. And here you would go Edward Street, right? So you can see the line items have mapped in, and we need to do the other one. So this is James. So in the case of where you have multiple rentals, it may just always be easiest to create a set of accounts to make this possible. And here we have all the line items mapped in. So here we've got 17894, and of course you should still double check 17894. Make sure that all the lines are correctly mapped, because this is possible that you could have some issues if you don't check your work. Something else to note here is in the settings for emails, e-sign, what we have is now an installment activity statement template, separate from the typical business activity statement template. So if you have a look in here at the wording, it talks about, from the information provided, by you estimate your tax installment. So note that this template will pop up in the case where there's an income activity statement as opposed to a business activity statement. So I do have some data in here for the 2023 year for this company, and I've also got assets in the depreciation module, and we can see that these will be reflected in the depreciation reports. So that's a 25 one, but we certainly have values in there for 2023. And what we want now is we want to be able to bring those assets into the form, because as you know, we now have the ability to report depreciation in the actual form. So the actual assets will reside in the form rather than externally. So over here you can see that we have the actual asset group balances, the depreciation totals for the specific groups. Now what we want to do is, you'll notice it's 4,085 and 800. So we'll be bringing in the group values, migrating the assets into the tax form. Certain assets won't import in. So if you've got immediate write-off assets or preliminary expenses, they'll be ignored. Everything else is going to come in. So all these other assets coming in, 4052, and there's the 33 for the low value pool separated out there. Now, what we have here now is the ability to come and generate a tax depreciation report. So you can see now we've actually ended up with the ability to view that tax depreciation report for that given financial year.